I'm Gillian Barthorpe, Director of Collection Services at AUT here in Auckland, and I'd like to welcome you all to the first of our concurrent sessions, and this is the library session. First off, we have a paper called Skills for the Digital Age, a Framework for Digital Literacies, and there are two presenters from La Trobe University. We have Jennifer Peasley, who is the University Librarian at La Trobe, responsible for leading, managing library services and partnerships across the university's 5 campuses. Prior to joining La Trobe in January 2013, Jennifer was Deputy University Librarian at Macquarie University Library, where her role encompassed quality and planning, corporate services and IT. Jennifer is also chair of the Council of Australian University Librarians Quality and Assessment Advisory Committee and has a strong commitment and interest in quality assurance, evaluation and organizational development and design. The other presenter is Fiona Salisbury, who is the Deputy Director of Learning and Engagement at La Trobe. Fiona has worked at La Trobe since 2006, and her portfolio responsibilities include learning and teaching programs and services, web design and e-learning development, evaluation, communications, and collaborative library initiatives related to curriculum design. Before working at La Trobe, Fiona held a number of positions at the University of Melbourne Library. She is also co-chair of the ALIA Research Advisory Committee and is passionate about building professionals' capacity for evidence-based practice and in the information services sector. So welcome to both Jenny and Fiona. I'll hand over to them.
Thanks, Jill, and thank you very much everyone for coming along today to hear about our journey towards digital literacies at La Trobe University. Sorry, I didn't give the right signal. I'm Jennifer Peasley, and we promise we won't do the two Ronnies act too much. So digital literacies. First of all, let's talk about digital natives. Digital natives is a term that was coined in 2001 to cover those generations that have grown up with the internet and technology. And you can see just some of the things that those digital natives have known. That term was used first in 2001, and it's become part of our common parlance since then. And it implies that everyone under 30 is digitally competent, and I think this has become a common assumption. But research tells us that's not the case. Research by the Foundation for Young Australians has found that 35% of 15-year-olds are not digitally literate. They might be digitally prolific, but they're not digitally proficient. 70% of the jobs that young people are preparing for now may no longer exist in the future. At La Trobe University, we identified that students and staff need help to develop digital literacy skills and the confidence to use the technology efficiently, cleverly, and safely. So the year before last, at La Trobe University, we identified the need to develop a digital literacies framework for the university, which would provide a shared understanding of digital literacies and their importance across the university. And I think this is a really important first step. Then we wanted to provide a scaffolded and consistent approach to digital literacies, which would link closely with the university's employability initiatives and clearly articulate the capabilities that our students would develop. And the framework would also provide an expectations for staff skill development, because it's critical that our staff are digitally literate if they are then to develop these capabilities in our students. In thinking about digital literacies, we thought first about the definition that we would use, and we discovered that there are a number of definitions of digital literacies and no strong agreement on one definition. And as Joe Caldwell-Nielsen states, there's no common understanding. Those taking an IT perspective see digital literacies as skills such as coding, data synthesis, manipulation, design, use and management of computerised, digital and automated systems. Librarians will often use the words interchangeably with information literacies, and yet it is broader than both these definitions. In fact, Joe Caldwell-Nielsen, who's quoted there, has an ALTC fellowship which aims to build a shared understanding of digital literacy. And when I spoke to her about using a definition for this conference, she said she's still working on it but hopes to have one soon. So at La Trobe, after looking at all these definitions, we agreed that we would not spend a great deal of time defining the term, but would in fact use an existing definition. And we've gone with the JISC definition.
So when we started our process to develop the digital literacies framework, we really wanted a model that acknowledges existing skills, because we realised that all students and staff were not starting from a zero base in terms of digital literacies, and that we wanted to just continue to work with staff and students in their areas of prior knowledge and build and refine those skills. So the key principles for the project were to embed that skill development in the curriculum, to focus on staff and students, because as Jenny said, we very quickly realised, we started off thinking we were going to develop a student framework, and we very quickly realised that it was no point just focusing on students. We needed to think about staff as well. And we also wanted the development of the framework to be informed by evidence. So to collect that evidence, we needed wide engagement across the university. So that was, this really became an engagement project. And it was also very collaborative. So to get that engagement, we wanted to involve lots of, all the stakeholders. So we had a process, a 6-step process, a very simple process. We also had only 5 months to develop the framework. So the first thing we did was think about the governance of the project, and we set up a reference group. The second step was to conduct an audit. So we wanted to know what the current state of digital literacies was in the university and where the areas of development were. We also got our engagement plan ready. The next step was to draft the framework. Then we needed to get feedback on the draft, and then we needed to get university endorsement. So 6 quite simple steps. When we set up the reference group, because we only had 5 months and we were using the JISC definition and model, we thought the best thing to do would be to get an external expert on that reference group. And the person that we engaged to come onto the reference group was Helen Beetham, who was involved in developing the model that you saw on the screen before. We also, we met fortnightly with Helen on Zoom, and we had a range of stakeholders in the reference group, and that included ICT, the library, the La Trobe Learning and Teaching, academics, our Research Education Development Unit, and our college education teams. In retrospect, another stakeholder that we didn't have on the reference group, but if I was doing again, I would be representatives from human resources, and that becomes very important when you are implementing the framework. So the communication planning was critical, because as I said, this very quickly became an engagement process. We had a comms plan that was very intentionally and deliberately planned a schedule of communication events, so that we didn't have any ad hoc communications as we worked through the process, and the reference group had responsibility for implementing that communications plan. The other people that were really important in the communications plan were our library senior learning advisors, and they were critical because of their liaison reach across the university and also because of the really well-established relationships they have with academics in our colleges. The engagement wasn't a linear process, so we kept cycling through these stages of engagement, and the end point of this engagement, the end point we were trying to get to was really very much about empowering people to start thinking about digital literacies and coming to their own conclusions about their role in the university, whether that's an academic or professional role, and how they need to build their digital capability. This, as you can see, this engagement process was very collaborative, and the thing that I think made us realise how collaborative it was, when we set up the reference group, we had 12 members. By the end of the 5 months, we had 18 members in that reference group because people kept asking to be on it. So as we got underway and people became engaged, the thing that I think we were amazed about is people didn't want to stop talking about digital literacies, and so they were asking us to come into that reference group, which actually has never happened to me before in working in a university. So the engagement activities involved a lot of imaginative thinking. I'm just going back. Yep. Okay, so the engagement activities involved an audit, and that's what the reference group was responsible for. And this involved a lot of imaginative thinking and idea generation. And at the heart of this audit, the audit of staff particularly, were two very simple questions. And the first one was, why are digital literacies important to La Trobe? And the second one was, what does a digitally literate staff and student look like? So those two very simple questions were the sort of starting point for all our evidence gathering. And through those questions, we started to build a picture of what students and staff and digital literacies look like at La Trobe. And these are just some of the products of that ideas generation. And what we're going to talk most about now is the outcomes of the staff survey, because it was the staff survey that was part of the audit that informed the development of the framework. But since we have implemented the framework, we've also done a student survey. We were invited to join the GISC pilot of the Student Digital Experience Tracker, and we've just run that at the start of first semester, and because it's a pilot, we ran it in 6 subjects and we had 220 responses, and those responses have just come in and we're about to start analysing them. But the best thing about this pilot is that it was run in 67 institutions across the UK and also 6 institutions across Australasia. So we're going to be able to even though we got quite a small response rate, we're going to have some really strong data to benchmark with, because overall those institutions, there were over 10,000 responses. So that data will help us inform further refinements of the framework, but also target resource development that we need to do, and plan additional engagement activities. But just to talk a bit more about the staff survey, so these are some of the questions that the staff survey was trying to drill down to. And we have a few more questions there, the sort of things that we we're trying to find out about the staff digital experience. And the key themes that came out in the results of that survey really emphasised attitudes. So, and this was a conversation that we kept coming back to in the reference group, that digital, and as Jennifer said before, digital literacies is not just about capabilities, it is about attitudes and how people think about the digital environment. So, and these sort of themes also have helped us think about how we move into the curriculum space and how we embed digital literacies in the curriculum, and what support staff need as well. One of the things I remember in one of the focus groups was one of a staff member saying, you know, I learnt so much doing this survey about what digital literacies is, but I also felt really, really inadequate, you know, because I suddenly realised what I don't know, and that just highlighted to the reference group where we need to start building support for staff. So I thought we would just show you some of the comments that came out of the survey. So, and this is coming back to the attitudes. So, you know, and also a little bit that the attitudes, but also the misunderstanding perhaps that digital literacies is about just about technology.
I think that's an interesting comment. I need to value the why, not just the how. Communities of practice came out as being a very, very strong need, so that people could actually get together and share information, share how they feel. And time, of course, is always an issue, particularly for academics.
It's very, I mean, these institutionally driven initiatives are so important for the student experience, but at the same time they you have to, and that's why our engagement was so important, because you have to make sure that you are not making academics feel like, you know, the institution is imposing something else on them. So, and that's, you know, why it comes out in those comments about time. You know, this is important, but where am I going to find the time? And the recognition and reward, again, was very important.
In fact, as we went through, we were asked if we would make this a graduate capability of the university. And after much discussion, we decided that we wouldn't push that agenda. The university already has 12 graduate capabilities, and they had just finished a process of mapping all 12 to the curriculum, a major exercise. And we just felt that this was another overhead, and it was not necessarily going to lead to the right attitude towards digital literacies, nor the full take-up of digital literacies. And so we felt the buy-in was more important.
So this is what we've ended up with, our framework. You can see the address is in the right-hand corner of the screen there, so you can access the framework. There's a lovely picture of the cover, but also the diagram that shows how the framework has been realised through digital attitudes, digital capabilities, and learning and self-development is a really important part of it. So this is what the framework is doing at a high level, and these are the detail of the capabilities that we've included in the framework. So this, of course, is based on that GISC model, and we have expanded it slightly. So now we are at the stage where we have the framework has been endorsed, was endorsed at the end of last year by the academic board at the university, and also of course first by the University Education Committee. So we are at the stage of implementing the framework, and that is being done in collaboration with academics, of course. Our library learning advisors work as part of curriculum design teams with also staff from La Trobe Learning and Teaching, and that is the main area where we are using this framework to develop student skills. We're also doing a lot of resource development, so we have a toolkit for staff to use in implementing the framework, and you can see on the right hand side the modules around social media are the most recent resource that we've developed. Jenny and I just wanted to make a point about what the role of the academic library in being a leader in digital literacies, and just to say that the library is very, very well placed to lead this sort of initiative across the university, because we have always worked across those boundaries, from the library into academic areas. The other thing that we've been concentrating on implementing the framework is thinking about digital capability in the library, so with library staff, and trying to set an example there, and thinking about how those digital literacies can be included in our position descriptions and also our staff development. And again, we are relying on JISC and the profiles. JISC has recently released profiles for information staff in the library and information sector that outline the capabilities that are required. So we're using those to update our PDs.
And we'll also build these into our performance management and review cycle.
And just a few final thoughts about how the library can progress the digital literacies agenda and lead by example. And some of the things that we have been doing in terms of working in partnerships with students, for example, is we are developing resources with students. Our latest orientation activity is called Mission Possible, and that's a game that students play on their phone that introduces them to the library, and it was actually developed by students with library staff sort of on the side. So these are some of the things that we're trying to do to implement our digital literacies framework.
And we're not there yet, but we do have an active community of practice, and I think it's important that we all share the knowledge and information around this. So, thank you.